morning, Father Swink. So this Sunday is the 28th Sunday Word at a Time, and we have this famous gospel of the Samaritans that were cured of leprosy. And it's 10 lepers, all had this terrible disease, which is, if you know anything about leprosy, it's not very common today, but basically it's this flesh-eating disease that's very, very painful, and basically your limbs fall off and you're ostracized. It's highly contagious, and basically your life was over. It was the worst thing you could possibly have, and so you're basically a dead man walking. And essentially Jesus heals 10 of them, and he says, go to the priest, show yourselves to the priest, which actually there's an implication there, is that we're cured from our leprosy of sin through confession. There's a tie-in there scripturally to the sacrament of reconciliation, where sort of this disease called sin is purified through the absolution of the priest. But I think too there's another point, that one of them, realizing that he was healed, went back to Jesus and he thanked God. He prostrated himself and thanked Jesus for what he did. And I guess the question is do we have the grace of gratitude to our Lord Jesus Christ for what he's done for us? And it's crucial in the spiritual life that at times we make acts of thanksgiving, that we look and realize as the one Samaritan that he's done great things for us. We tend as human persons to always focus on the one negative thing in our life and not look at the 9 blessings. And it's interesting, you have 10 Samaritans, only one realized the good that happened to him. And I think that's a lesson for us implicitly, that when you're like kind of focusing on some cross in your life or a suffering or a problem, maybe step back and say, well, what are the 9 things that are going well in my life, Lord? And that gets you out of self-pity and sadness and sort of like a spiritual depression. The other thing too is we have to realize is that it's a grace, that the one Samaritan received the grace of thanksgiving. It's not just a matter, let me think harder about what God's doing in my life, but to pray that I realize from the heart that truly God has been good to me. And I'm sure we've had moments where out of nowhere you just feel gratitude for what God has done for you. In English, the word thanks doesn't really mean much. It's like, thank you. I'm like, okay, you're welcome. It's just sort of a formality. But in the Romance languages, next week we'll be going to Italy with a bunch of parishioners, and I'll be praying for you while over there. But, you say grazie to say thank you when someone, does something for you. And notice in that word is grace. So this week, ask yourself, especially at Mass, is when you come to communion, a great point is when you go back to your seat, do you make an act of thanksgiving, like, God, thank you for receiving me, but more importantly, realizing how God is healing you every day and he's in your presence. So it's the reason I bring this up is that once again, we tend to focus on the negative all the time, but we don't realize, like this Samaritan, the blessings that God's doing. So I'm thankful for all of you and the blessings of the parish, but I ask you to pray about that when you're going through a rough time, is what's the 9 things going right as opposed to that one thing going wrong.